Right.
Our guest, Lewis Ngunyi, who is the Mbogi with the Daily Nation. He is a columnist now with the Daily Nation. You can find his articles. All of them are still available online on Nation.Africa, Daily Nation. You'll find them there. He's here in the studio. Lewis, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well.
Thank you.
Karibu sana to Fixing the Nation.
Thank you for having me.
One conversation at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll tell us a lot about what you do, and then we'll get into what your articles are based on.
Okay.
How you even come to think of the things that you're saying. On whose behalf are you acting?
Who sent you?
Who sent you? Yeah, the one who has told you to write. But Mariam, Jano has the day's quote. We call her Jano Amakots.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ralph Nader, who is a political commentator, activist, environmentalist from the US, he once said, the function of leadership is to produce more leaders, not more followers. Right? So the function of leadership is to produce more leaders, not more followers. Does that hold true with you?
Yeah. I think it does. Quite heavy. I'm actually trying to digest it as we speak. Function of leadership is to produce more leadership, not more followers. Yeah, I think that resonates with me to a certain extent because we have a leadership crisis in Kenya right now, and especially with the younger generation. So I think that being the problem that has been, because every generation has always passed the torch. This one is holding it. And Ruto is treating 30-year-olds as kids. And it's unfortunate, I think. Yeah.
That's so profound what he just said. Generations passed the baton. This one is like, nope.
Is there any that has passed the baton?
Or is the baton taken?
Yes.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think it's passed with the intention of holding more power. If you look at the way Ruto came about, through Moi, yeah. It was a large ploy, really.
Yeah.
It was.
Hold power,
Yeah.
The illusion of democracy.
Right.
How's Nanyuki?
Quite cold. It's quite cold. I left at 3 a.m., so
Oh, boy.
not yet settled.
Okay.
I'm sure I will.
Thank you so much for making time for us, by
Thanks
the
a
way.
lot.
I know even those traffic, you had car trouble, but you made it.
Yeah.
And we're really grateful. The columns that you've been writing over the last few weeks have just really struck me because they're like, it's like you're putting my invasive thoughts on paper, which I quite love. But tell us a bit about Lewis before July 2024 and Lewis after July 2024.
Right. All my social media handles usually say village boy from Nanyuki. Sorry, I've been up and about Nairobi, so I'm not yet settled down, but I'm sure I will. So I was born and raised in Nanyuki, grew up there, and I was running a business. I run a marketing agency, and we do a lot of automation, especially for sales and all that stuff. And so that's what I used to do before 25th of June last year. And then I organized for protest in Nanyuki. And then obviously everything just came spilling over as a result, yeah. So I had a court case that really extended for quite a long time. Yeah, and turned my life upside down. Yeah, so
What were you accused of?
arson was the major
Arson?
one. Yeah,
Wow.
and destruction of property, the usual stuff too.
Whatever they can pin or
Anything,
try to
yeah.
pin on you.
But it wasn't even charges that were levied. It was, just investigations for like 6 months. It was a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
You were also abducted.
Detained.
Detained, okay,
Yeah.
that's the word.
Yeah.
All right.
But I would have been abducted if they'd found me over the weekend. Probably, I don't know.
Right, tell us about that because I know they went to your friend's house looking for you.
Yeah.
Didn't find, made a mistake, I don't know. Were you given like a warrant of arrest? Were you given the cause? Like we said yesterday on the show, there's procedure when arresting someone. So if it's not followed, what do you call it then? But just share, yeah.
I think I'd been told that some guys were looking for me through the weekend. Up until the point where we had to go to the police station with the advocates. I think it was on a Monday or Tuesday. So I wasn't summoned, nothing happened. But when we got to court, they said they'd issued multiple summons, which was really ridiculous. And, to some extent, the judiciary also has been complicit on that end.
So the judge said summons had been issued?
No.
Who said?
The
The prosecutor?
the investigating officer.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's how.
But you didn't receive any summons?
I didn't, no. I did not. And I even called the OCS and asked him, are you guys looking for me? And they said, no. Yeah, but I'm not sure our OCS was aware, because I don't have any reason to doubt him so far, at least. Yeah, because he's been really, really helpful to us. Yeah.
So it could have been other actors.
Those
doing
guys.
that.
Yeah.
How detained for how long?
Overnight, just one night. And the next day I went to court. I had like 21 advocates. I was so happy. And I constantly just smile about everything.
Right.
You know, last year fundamentally changed. I keep saying if it didn't change you, if COVID didn't change you, if June 25th didn't change you, then you're gliding. So for some people, it changed their ability to just, you know, wake up and have a normal day in light of everything that's happening, almost like shifted an anger or agitation in them. What is the one thing it fundamentally changed in you where you're saying, I can never go back to being that Lewis?
I think the extent to which you can still obey laws in this country and still they'll find a way to have a problem with you really changes how you view things. Because our assumption growing up was if you do the right thing, if you pursue justice, then everything will be fine. And even when we were organizing for protest in Nanyuki, we didn't anticipate any problems because we did the first one, it was really peaceful. The second one, rumor has it, which I'm inclined to believe, that guns were planted because we're a relatively peaceful town. So when the guns were planted, every wanton violence was meted upon our town. And obviously that was put on my back because I'm the one who wrote the letter. It was a lot easier in Nanyuki to pinpoint an individual and to single me out. So what changed? I really care about good governance. I really do. I can't. It's gotten to a point where I think it's my personal responsibility to make sure, because I've been a passenger throughout, or somebody else would do it, but I don't think somebody else would do it. And the people that step up, you know, obviously I'm sure we'll get into it, in the vacuum of serious individuals shying away from a democratic process, they're usually coming to, like we said, the torch that's passed with somebody who has an intention of holding power. So we really need to proactively think about that stuff. So that's what changed for me, at least. Yeah.
Okay.
So since then, you've been a very active person,
Yeah.
and you know, monitoring and seeing things that are happening and engaging and commentating about it. And I'm sure every opportunity you get with people, you bring up issues. You know, that's what you're doing now.
At least, yeah.
And then you got this national platform, the Daily Nation, where you're now a weekly columnist, right? Every week you've got an article.
Yeah.
You've been writing about what you see from a youth perspective in terms of leadership going forward. So even before we get into the details of what you've been writing, what do you see in your crystal ball from what was happening last year and the wokeness of the youth as we head into the next election and future elections in terms of government? What are you seeing?
That's a loaded question. I think I would start with the wokeness, at least. We are a movement that knows a lot about what we're not than what we are. So, and you know, we think, and obviously, maybe this is also a philosophical question, the opposite of tyranny is freedom, but it isn't. I think it's Jordan Peterson who says the opposite of tyranny is play. And freedom anticipates that there are no regulations. It's just an open field where anybody gets to decide for themselves what's what. But play is a little bit more complex. It's freedom within a framework. And I think we're a movement that's extremely amorphous to a point where anybody can define it, you know. But we need to have parameters within which we need to play so that it can become fun for everyone. And also so that we know who are we playing with and who are we not playing with. Because we are rendering ourselves to multiple definitions as we leave ourselves as amorphous as possible. And even infiltrations come about as a result and as a consequence of us not being very clear about who we are and who we're not.
So I'm hearing two things here. There's one side of you that is saying that we need to formalize in a way. And then there's the other side of this formalization, though, will make us lose this amorphousness which has worked for us.
It has,
So it's like two forces that are pulling, you know,
in opposite
directions.
I don't believe it is.
Which one is stronger?
I think both can exist. The two truths can exist in the same space, in the sense that order does not preclude power. It can go hand in hand, in the sense that we can harness the power that we had last year, because last year it's very widely spoken that we didn't have a structure, but we did. the structure was. We wanted to get rid of the finance bill, but it was also a binary question. Are you for or against the finance bill?
Yeah.
But right now we have a more complex question. So it's a very open-ended question. What's the next step forward? So we need to render ourselves to a bit more structure and direction. But at the same time, we need to retain our ability to change if our direction is not clear. But we also need to be very proactive and also open about it. Yeah.
So given that, what would be, maybe this is again loaded, what then would be a good first step to get to that next step?
Yeah, that's a good question. Good question. What's a good first step? I think we should first and foremost determine our values, and also no, actually that's not true. We should really. I think everybody needs to interrogate internally how they've benefited from a broken society, and once we have that conversation, then we can start to have a bit more empathy with each other. Because all of us benefit to a certain degree. You know, at some point, you flaunt traffic regulations, and then you get away with it. And then you go on Twitter and say, Ruto needs to stop, which he does need to stop stealing, by the way, in case somebody says I didn't say that.
You're right. But
everyone benefits from a broken society to a certain degree. There are unwarranted benefits that we accrue. Each of us at a modular level. So as long as we're not ready to have that conversation, then we don't have grace for each other, because evil is always looking like an external problem as opposed to an internalized crisis within our country. So everybody is usually looking for corners. Not everybody, but at least if you can find it. And also, I don't think it's something that's intrinsically evil. I think there's a deeply rooted problem in our country that, for instance, if you go to the hospital and you can pay 1,000 shillings to make your mom skip the queue, then are you corrupt, or do you just love your mom? And the system that doesn't have enough doctors is the one that's facilitated this corruption. So, of course, there are two ways to think about it. We can think about how the system has made us like this, and we can also think about how we ourselves as a country, we've allowed ourselves to just fall into this space where we can just,
we are entrenching the system.
We're entrenching the system,
Let's take a break.
Yeah?
Cool. And then come back. I know, Mariam, you've got the two articles.
Yes.
And we can dig deep into those two articles and what you've said. We have Mbogi, a columnist with the Daily Nation, and you can find his articles on nation.africa, Daily Nation. You'll find all of them there. Lewis Ngunyi is very many things. He's a marketer. He is from Nanyuki. He's a village boy from Nanyuki.
Especially,
First and foremost.
Yes, he's a village boy from Nanyuki. And he's our guest, and we are discussing, the what next? The youth and democracy, youth and the way forward, youth and the current movement into the future. All those are what we're discussing. We'd like to hear as well from you on what you think of what he's saying, and you can post all your comments on all our social media platforms. We'll be back in a moment, 7:30.
Lewis, I don't know if I misquoted you, but I hope.
I hope you didn't.
Yeah? You also hope I didn't. No, but I just wanted to get into two of your most recent articles.
Okay.
One talks about moral absolutism. And you say when it comes to the protests, it started with things like influencers who did not amplify the cause. Their careers were nuked, right? It's like, you're using your platform to sell lip gloss, but like, why aren't you on the streets? It started like that. Ex-users who questioned the script after the protest, buried under retweets screaming enemy. This was not accountability anymore. It was excommunication, a purity test with no end. They no longer wanted reform. They wanted a utopia where dissent was a death sentence. This was moral absolutism, rigid, blind, fatal. That's one. Then your next article, actually not next, but a few articles later, talks about handshake politics and how it now threatens youth vision. And you talk about, for example, the Kasmuel Morara handshake, a spectacle that got tongues wagging and timelines buzzing, isn't the reunion of revolutionary comrades. It's a masterclass in the political sleight of hand.
Sounds really fun when someone else reads it.
Someone else.
Oh, yeah, right.
So I'm trying to marry the two and sort of see, because that moral absolutism cancelled Morara and Kasmuel.
Yeah.
And then now you're saying these handshakers, they're threatening our vision.
Yeah.
So help me reconcile those two things.
I think when we're discussing moral absolutism, my intention while writing this was saying we're thinking about people who do good more times than they do wrong. And my issue with the handshake really is the mystery within which it's shrouded in. And it's consistent with the politics we're used to. So we're used to seeing Raila and Ruto insulting each other today, tomorrow they're in a room, and we don't know the rationale. So we're trying to build a country with transparency. But Morara will be sitting with the Munyoro crew, then two months later he'll be insulting them on Twitter. Not insulting, but like castigating them on Twitter.
Fair.
So at what point do you become so clever? And who informed this? Because now we didn't know why he went there. We don't know how he came out of it. So that is the similar script, political conmanship, that we're really uncomfortable with. Personally, I am. So that's the question I'm raising, at least. Yeah. So I don't think it's inconsistent. I think it's very consistent in the sense that we need to think about, in as much as we don't want to cancel pointlessly, but we should cancel if there's a really decent point.
I think what you've done is you found a balance, because it's something we've talked about here quite a few times. The moral absolutism, I always think, it's a self-defense mechanism. It's an overcorrection, because we have been morally neglectful for a long time. So now it's like any sign of a red flag. It could be maroon, could be a little bit pink, but if we're heading towards red, and it's cancelled. And then on the other side, it's now what we're used to, the politics that we're used to, which is handshakes and deals and everything shrouded in mystery. And so now it's like, how do we find that balance as a people? So we're not cancelling needlessly, and then we have, no path forward. It's just like no to everything, but we're also not just sliding back into the same patterns. So I get what you're saying, and I do think that what you're alluding to is there's a balance.
There is a balance.
Yeah, there has to be. Sometimes I wonder what it will take for the general public to feel that somebody is redeeming themselves. I wonder if it's somebody coming forward and saying, look, I don't have all the answers. All I have is trust in this country, and I want to make it better. Can we do this together? I don't know if it's wording. I don't know if it's attitude. I don't know, whatever it is, because sometimes it looks like, especially the two young gentlemen who've been essentially, I don't know if they're centering themselves or we've centered them or whatever it is. It's similar to what Lewis is saying. You come out of the blue and say, this is what we're doing. We're like, but you didn't thread with us. Couldn't you have said, I'm considering. But then I remember Morara here saying, you go. I can't be... I know that leadership is important, and I know I have it in me, so I'm going to pursue it. I'm going to wait for somebody to believe in me. So what is it? Is it how we package it? Is it how we say it? Is it leaning towards? I don't know.
Can I hazard a guess? It's how we hear it and how we choose to hear it. Because there's a possibility that, Janet, you may start a conversation by saying, you know what, I don't have the right answers, but I am thinking this way. And I will take the I'm thinking this way as the beginning of your sentence. Right? And in fact, even I'm thinking I'll not hear. I'll hear the this way part. I think sasa wewe unafikiri wewe unajua kila kitu.
All of a sudden you're very clever.
All of a sudden you're very clever.
Very clever.
Yeah? I think it's also how we hear it. How do we take how do we listen to what we are hearing and then ask ourselves, what have you said before this? Where are you heading with this? How can we question this? So that then we get to understand context and not just what is being said. I think that's
do you
part
agree?
of our challenge.
I agree. And I also think, if you look at someone whose social credibility has been really attacked online, you find Hanifa, for example. And Hanifa throughout, it's been endless attacks every single day. But she's maintained a certain level of trust. People trust her because who Hanifa was yesterday is who she is today. In as much as she might change her ideas and opinions on specific things, she's very clear about it. And you can see the consistency. Now,
the same one who was saying she started with garbage, no?
Yep.
Yes.
Garbage, yes.
In Korogocho.
Same energy that she was using to tag the governor and everyone. Years later now is the same energy that's saying Atwoli retire. So I get that. But it's like, what structures do we have now to figure out? Because I think of discernment and all these things, and you can being able to read between the lines. And I can say for a fact, I can look at the kind of pushback that Hanifa gets, and I'm like, this is unwarranted because she's been consistent, she's been clear, she's been honest, she's audited, given us audited accounts of every penny she received. Fine. But then I try to convince someone, and they're like, no. Awezi pewa milioni. It was how much? 20 ama na ukose kukula. It's like, how do we get that now to be, how do we get a system of sorts for vetting our youth leaders?
Yeah. So I think
it's a big question, I know, I'm sorry.
A very lengthy detour.
Yeah.
We've got a generation that has a very short concentration span. The way we consume everything is very dopamine inducing. So excitement really forms the basis of how we consume and interact with the news that we have. And I think even media houses, you've known that. And like you've talked about clickbait, really, really good at it. But when we think about the people that are online most of the time, they're very interested in that kick. And I think when we have discussions around leadership and the future of our country, we forget that about 3% on the psychological threshold, the proper antisocial, dysregulated people. And some people are very loud within that spectrum. And it's very important to understand that even if we do an election today, at least 3 million people will vote for Ruto, and you can't convince them. So we can't carry everyone. We should be fine with not agreeing with everyone. We just go with who we can. And there's a very silent majority that doesn't make noise, but they observe. And if you go on the street, if you see Hanifa out on the streets, people love her. Even when she went for the Harambee Stars game, everybody takes care of her. But if you go on the internet, some people have been paid shillings to run a campaign. The good thing about me is if you run a campaign about me, I'll just switch my phone off and go home because Nanyuki is a fantastic town.
Yeah.
But so we can't carry everyone. There's always people that we're going to leave behind, and that's fine. And it doesn't speak to the soul of the movement that we don't have 100% participation.
You know those words you've just said, Lewis?
Yeah.
Those words, similar words, were said by Morara-Kasmuel when he sat here 2 weeks ago. Right? That we move.
Yeah.
There are people who, at some point, they will come and see, okay, this guy has been consistent, or this guy has been all about this.
Yeah.
In all the falling, the standing up, the everything, this is the direction he was heading.
Right.
Some will come. Some may actually see, all along I knew this is not the direction I want us to go.
Yeah.
And they'll not jump on board.
That's true.
But it's about doing something. The silent majority who sit back and they are watching, they are observing, how sure are we that they will take action when the time comes? And how do we make sure that they then speak at the ballot?
There's a spectrum of allies. I think it's a theory for change or something. I studied it at some workshop with ActionAid that maps out. There's active supporters, active opponents, passive opponents. Then there's here in the middle, just people who are just there, moderates.
Wakutu.
Yeah, Wakutu. And the idea is not to move active opponents to active supporters, and not everybody can belong to every single one of these groups. And this is a spectrum. There's at least 7 or 8 steps. But if we have that binary view on how things ought to be, or you're either a loud supporter or you're not, then we're really failing ourselves. I think the idea is to move the needle. If I take you from for example, look at someone like Kimani Ichung'wah as a very active opponent, but he's now a passive opponent. I haven't seen Kimani Ichung'wah since they went to Murima. So then the needle has been moved, and that's really important. So if we move a passive opponent to a neutral, then we've done a lot of work, and we should leave them. Don't say, oh, now that you're a neutral, we need you to start speaking like this. So there's no problem with the silent majority being silent. They can be silent. What I know is from the conversations I have with a lot of people is that there's a deep desire for change within the country. And I think it will speak. But of course, we have a very loud minority on both ends. And right now, because most voices are being bought, there's a serious job crisis in the country, and a lot of young people are being paid to run campaigns for people online, which I wouldn't really, say it's evil, because you
can't even fault them, because are you paying their rent?
You can't fault it. But the general consciousness is alive, and even if it's not noisy, it's still there. It's just silent. But it's very important to sieve through, there are people who listen, there are just people who observe, and they don't say anything. Even me, when I go home, people just tell me, I see what you're doing. And I'm like, you do? That's nice.
That's nice, thank you.
Thank you, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I think we've talked about that. We talked about the fact that we like excitement. And it worries me. I'm like, if it's not going to give me that rush, what you say, what you do, how you go viral, how you raised your fist, I'm just like, there's room for boring. I keep saying, or moderate.
Yeah.
There's room to just listen beyond is it called histrionics, when you just kind of overly, dramatize what you say.
Yeah.
But we've become so sold to it. I think from the days that Kenyatta was holding his, we see that.
Yeah.
I was even going to go, to a offside and say that's how the Führer became the Führer, right?
Yeah.
We are so impassioned by people who do that, and I'm like, this is how we're here.
Yeah.
So how do we extend room to hear people even beyond the loud voices? How do we extend room to say, okay, let me listen to her, let me listen to him?
Yeah.
It worries me because then it means you're buying into a charm, you're buying into an aesthetic, and yet somebody who had more to bring to the table is, bypassed because you don't have riz.
Yeah.
Where's your riz?
Yeah.
Where is it?
Yeah.
You're rizless.
Yeah.
My sons the other said there's another one, Rizla. Riz and Shanesekwa or something. By the way, my sons are 6 and 9.
And I'm like, together.
Yes. But they're that young. They're Gen Alpha and they're like, Mom, Riz is Yajuzi. It's a Rizla. I'm just like, but anyway, sorry. It's related. Let me circle back to this conversation.
But no, that's
How do you get the silent ones to actually become, to get a space? What's that guy in the Democratic Party in the US who has been the old Mzee?
Bernie
Sanders.
How do you get people to listen to Bernie Sanders
Yeah, you don't.
and not listen to him?
And you shouldn't.
Like,
so
yes, we can. Because we're saying,
Lewis is like, we don't and we should not.
you probably shouldn't.
Why?
I think it's also incumbent on of good leaders that they step up and they're also not lazy in the pursuit of power, because it's a misconception that I'm good, so you should vote for me regardless. But I think you should speak to people. The people are probably going to support in 2027 in that category where they're like, oh no, but we don't speak like that. But you should. Your failure to inspire people to follow you is part of the problem we have. So either good leaders are not inspirational, which, how am I going to expect you to go to parliament and speak on our parliamentary issues if you can't speak to me?
If you can't persuade your fellow parliamentarians to vote with you.
Exactly. So I think it's incumbent on good leaders that they learn skills instead of just saying, oh, a good leader can't speak like that. Just speak like that, man. What's that about? Yeah.
Moses told God that.
He couldn't speak.
I can't speak. And God said, it's you who I've chosen.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Figure it out.
Figure it out.
Have faith in me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Even if you need to find mouthpieces. Right now you see, over the past 2 years, ODM's mouthpiece has been Sifuna, and he's been doing a really, really good job. So Raila is not irrelevant as a consequence of Sifuna and the people around him. But then we'll have, good leaders that are cropping up. We haven't seen any strong speaker even Matiang'i himself is not very strong at speaking, but the Senator Onyonka has been really doing a good job. But, Maraga's team doesn't have somebody to speak on his behalf, and he's being touted as the next good leader, which I really agree with. But he shouldn't also, and his team, continuously say, we can't speak like this. Because then where are we supposed to know what you're about? Yeah.
How do we marry now those, for example, your Maragas and people who would ideally be good leaders with this agitation that it just honestly needs to be someone who looks like me, is around my age, understands my issues?
I think it's about the constitution of the team. I don't think any Gen Z or young person really has any interest in becoming president. Very few have an interest in even being governors. What we are about is we want a leadership or a presidency or a government that's formed that has the issues of 65% of its population at the heart of their manifesto. So it could be whoever comes about. But the issues we have right now, even if I became president, it wouldn't solve the issues that we have in our country, because the interests around leadership in this country are centered on loots and all that stuff. So it's not even, Maraga is probably one of the oldest presidential candidates we've got right now, but he seems to understand. He seems to, and it's a leader that a lot of young people chose for themselves. They themselves went to him and said, we think you can do this. And it's really about a question on implementation of the constitution and following it, because if it could be followed, then things would at least work to a certain degree. So that can work on a presidential level, but also at the same time, we've been having conversations with some young people that what we have in our country right now is also a failure of the legislature. We have a parliament that's completely inept. They don't do anything. I don't even know why they're there. They should just be having a WhatsApp group with the president and stop
taking orders.
Stop wasting our time, yeah. So if we had a parliament that, if young people stepped up, took up leadership positions, then it won't matter if a president is a log of wood. They will be checked adequately in parliament. So I think that's really, really important. Even as we think about
National
presidency, we need to think about our representation. Who is the MCA? Because they determine how money flows in the counties. Who's your member of parliament? Because they determine how money flows through the country. So, you know, we really, really have a legislature that's been taken over. And I think even I was hearing stories that, it's not easy to do that because the government usually has something on you. But if it has something on you, then you shouldn't be there. Yeah, so...
Oh, if it has something on you. I'm curious if there's an article you're so excited to write. Something that's in you that you're like, I can't wait to get this, to put this on paper.
I'll wait for God.
Oh, wow.
Wait
See
for
what you did there,
the voice from Take Off Your Shoes. Yeah, I don't really anticipate writing anything. So I just sit down. Even when you were reading, I was like, I wrote that.
Yeah.
It's interesting,
Yeah.
So something just comes at some point.
Okay.
I love the way you write, and I think even now hearing you speak, there's just a lot of insight. Also, a lot of the ability to remove yourself and to then be able to look at the situation as is, not just from your point of view. Like POV is trending because we are in a time of POV. It's my point of view. So then, how do we get ourselves out of that cocoon of POVing? I think about how much of an echo chamber sometimes I am in. I've curated my Twitter timeline perfectly because I don't want some nonsense. I'm like, I don't want to see that. But then I end up with just people who agree with me. And we're like, yes.
You're in a fishbowl.
Yeah. That's it.
That's a good question.
Yeah. You're able to remove yourself clearly so that you can have a bird's eye view. How do we do that for the nation so we're not all just living in our two echo chambers? And then elections come around and we're like,
How
did this person win?
How do I do it? I think I was raised to really empathize with, because I've got my siblings and we've got a 2-year difference, and I'm the middle child, which is, power to middle kids.
You do give middle child because you're consolidating,
Yeah. So we had a lot of conflict growing up with my obviously sibling conflict, but it got to a point where, if you grow up in a household that's constantly having chaos, because we're all very chaotic people in the house, apart from my dad, you learn to just interrogate other people's perspectives. And even now growing up, that's been the case. But also as an adult, I think I've thought about how societies, and I've read very deeply about this, societies have been sustained by poverty and whatever, and disease and everything, but no society has ever withstood an escape from the truth if you consistently run away from even inconvenient truths. So I think it's incumbent on everybody to just at least be honest, especially on the part you play. So when things go left, I ask myself, how did I contribute to this? And if I really did, I'm going to interrogate that before I interrogate anybody else. And if I didn't, then, woe unto whoever did it. So I think just the constant pursuit of truth, even especially in the event that it makes you uncomfortable. And that's why I said step 1 would be for all of us to interrogate, how do we, did you say benefit? Benefit from a broken system. And is that...
Not take advantage.
Oh, yes, not benefit.
Yeah,
take advantage.
Benefit is passive.
It's passive, yeah. How do we take advantage of a broken system to get an upper hand? And is that something you're willing to let go? And if you're not, then On what moral high ground do you stand to insist on a better country? So I think really the idea of decentering myself comes from just a pursuit of truth. I do my best to be very truthful because I lied a lot at some point in my life.
Yeah.
Self-auditing. I think we run away from it, but it's the most important thing to do. But you can do it while being kind to yourself, because I think people are scared of looking at themselves, because you look at yourself too long, you don't often like what you see, right? Internally. You go into that, you open that basement in your life that only you know about, and you're like, I don't want to go to the basement. Go to the basement.
You should.
But just go slowly, have a torch, extend grace. But I think we do run away from self-auditing. It's painful.
Spend time
but
there.
Spend time there. Spend time with the traumas and the privileges and the brokenness, and then begin to be like, okay, how are we moving out of it?
Yeah.
So,
Lenny agrees with what you said. We know more of what we are than what we are not. And he said that's profound. We need to know what we are, that we are the power, and we have only lent it out to one of us or to some of us. Paul Miner says, great to have minds like Lewis, who despite not being loud, he has a lot of wisdom and hope that he'll inspire very many young people. I love the new alertness of the youth. Lenny likes your perspective. Talk it out. For sure, this has helped a lot in the current government. Talking it out, whether it's propaganda, PR, slight truth, or whatever, others should take a cue as well. My prince says, Morara said, go and fundraise. I've made way for you. That's the message that he left us with. And many comments that are coming in, and we thank you all for sending in all those moments. Comments. Just make sure that you watch out for Lewis Ngunyi's next big time bogey article.
That should be on Monday.
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Thank you very much, Lewis, for coming.
Thank you very much as well.
Spend some more time in Nairobi before you head back to Nanyuki.
Right.
Hopefully won't.
You don't like it here?
In the next hour, we talk about the grade 10 transition. Are we prepared for it? So you have grade 9 learners, maybe you're a parent. Do you know how your child is going to start selecting schools and the career path going into next year? Do the grade 9s know? Do the teachers know? We'll have a teacher in studio for that conversation. Keep it here. It's 8 a.m.